Well, I have it as being 12 o'clock, so thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Christina Ferroli. I'm the Grants Program Coordinator with the Indiana Cooperative Development Center, and I will be moderating today's webinar, which is Understanding SNAP, WIC, and Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program Requirements for Farmers Markets and Direct Market Farmers. Again, this is presented by the Indiana Farmers Market Community of Practice, so thank you for joining us. We just some general housekeeping reminders. Please remain muted throughout the presentation. If you have any questions, please type your questions into the chat, and the speakers will answer your questions at the end of the 3 presentations. And we have 3 awesome guest speakers with us today. We have Angela Albin, who's the program director with the Indiana State EBT Coordinator's Office, which covers SNAP and TANF. We also have Juliet Glass, and she's the communications manager with MarketLink. And Legita Wilson is joining us. She's the WIC commodities manager, which includes WIC and Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program with the Indiana Department of Health. So thank you to our 3 speakers. With that, we will get started, and we are recording this presentation for posting later. So you will have access to this again. First up is Angela Albin.
Hello, everybody. Angela Albin with the State of Indiana Family and Social Services Administration. I'm going to be providing information on the SNAP, a little bit of information on the SNAP program, and mainly how to get free equipment through the Indiana Family and Social Services Administration and our vendor Conduent. So if you're interested in becoming a SNAP authorized retailer, there are some questions you might want to ask yourself first. Do you have customers who are asking about SNAP EBT at your market? Is there adequate public transportation to your market? How would you do marketing? How would you get the word out about being able to accept SNAP EBT at your market? And do you have the extra resources needed to run a SNAP EBT program? And I'm mainly presenting this because when I've gone to other farm market forums or other places where I've spoken about this, I do have farmers markets that come to me saying we don't have enough. I'm sorry, there's a lot of background noise right now. Can everybody mute, please? Thank you. I do get farmers markets telling me they didn't have enough sales to really justify running a SNAP EBT program. So I'm just presenting some of this information to give you some things to think about to see if this is a direction you would want to go in. So you could ask yourself, is the SNAP program right for you? Here are some benefits. Here are some pluses and minuses to running a SNAP EBT program. Some of the benefits are an increase of sales by providing another payment option for customers. You are enabling SNAP recipients to have access to be able to purchase SNAP eligible fresh and healthy foods. And the free point of sale equipment does provide an option to accept credit or debit transactions also, but that is at an additional cost to the retailer. Some of the challenges would be marketing, trying to get the word out to the population that is on SNAP, needing extra volunteers or staff to manage the program. There's extra paperwork and record keeping responsibilities and some extra training that would be involved. Okay. So if you would like to look into or get more information or apply to be an authorized SNAP retailer, you would need to go through USDA Food Nutrition Services for that. And I provided the website here and a phone number you can call. It does take about 45 days or up to 45 days for applications to be processed. If you are not sure if your market is already authorized or if you've had a change in market managers, you will want to contact USDA Food Nutrition Services Farmers Market Hotline. I've provided that number. They need to know of any changes in market managers so they know who to be in touch with. And they have all of that information with authorization numbers for SNAP at that number. Okay. Right now, there are two options for free point of sale equipment that accepts SNAP EBT. And it just depends on what your market needs. These are both great options. Market Link, which you're going to hear from Juliet a little bit later on that, they have a wonderful option for their free program. But I'm mainly going to give you information on the Conduent equipment. Conduent is our EBT vendor with the state of Indiana. Part of their contract includes providing the free point of sale equipment for authorized and eligible farmers markets. This equipment is provided by CDE, and it is actually a new contract they have with CDE. So right now they're in the process of upgrading people. If you have the prior equipment with FIS, that's all being upgraded to new equipment from CDE. Conduent uses AT&T for their wireless provider. So you might think if your farmer's market is located somewhere where you don't have good service with AT&T, this might not be the best option for you. And I've also provided the number. There's an 800 number to call to get information and to apply for that program. Okay.
This is Alvin. Can I ask a question? I apologize. I was a few minutes late. Will you be emailing this information to us as well? I missed the number that you had for contacting the retailer, so I apologize for interrupting.
That's okay. I'll have my contact information. I think, Christina, were you going to be sending this information out?
Yes, I will follow up with a follow-up email to everyone with PowerPoint presentations and any other information that Angela wishes to share with the group.
Okay, thank you again. I apologize.
It's okay.
No problem, thanks.
And I think we're taking questions after the presentation also. I know you said you joined late, so that's okay, thanks. With the Conduent program, you do get the wireless equipment, setup costs, monthly fees, EBT transaction fees. All of these things are provided to you at no cost. Next slide, please. And the next slide just has kind of a little breakdown of all of the things you get with this free point of sale device. Please note that EBT transactions are free. Credit and debit are optional. If you want that, you can receive that also, but there are additional fees that will apply that you will be responsible for. The state will not pay for credit or debit transaction fees. Okay. And here's the number again to call if you would like to order the point of sale equipment from Conduent. It's 800-222-7757 if you'd like to get more information on that. And if you do have any other questions about this after the presentation's over, or you think of something later, you can always contact me too. My information's coming up on another slide. Okay. And some of the frequently asked questions, if you're billed for transaction charges for credit or debit, when are those taken out of your account? Those are taken out the month following the month that the transactions occurred. If you have a few stands that you're running, you can only receive one free point of sale device for each authorized FNS number. The equipment will last for a few years if you take care of it. If it needs repairs, you can get a repair replacement usually overnight to 2 days, depending on the circumstances. And we will try to offer free equipment for as long as we can, for as long as it's supported by USDA Food Nutrition Services. And we will continue to try to make sure if we have any, if we change vendors, that we will continue to offer the free equipment as long as that's supported by FNS. Okay. And I think we're going to hold questions until after everybody's presented. Next. Okay, and there's my contact information, angela.albin@fssa.in.gov. If you do have any other questions, and you can also call me. I've put the FNS numbers on there too that I mentioned earlier. So if you think of any questions, please hold them for after the presentation. I'll answer them then. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. And again, if you want to use the chat, we will have the 3 speakers answer questions at the end of the 3 presentations. Next up, we have Juliet Glass, and she's with MarketLink. And just a quick reminder, please remain muted during the presentations. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me to present about the Market Link program. We can proceed to the next slide. Market Link is a program of the National Association of Farmers Market Nutrition Programs. It is a complete technology solution that was first developed in 2013 through a USDA grant, and we have been re-awarded the grant in 2019, so picking up where we left off. And our solution for payments is streamlined and really designed for direct market farmers and farmers markets with the goal of increasing sales and growing their customer base. Next slide. Market Link, we are a couple different entities that make up Market Link. The first is the National Association of Farmers Market Nutrition Programs. We are funded by the USDA Food and Nutrition Services, and then the developer is the Novadia Group. They are the creators of the Mobile Market Plus app, which is being phased out and replaced with the Total Pay app. So this app-based equipment. So there is no, what I call a brick. It's basically on your phone. How it works is that you first do the Market Link eligibility assessment on our website. It's just a few questions. Then you have to get your FNS authorization to become a SNAP authorized retailer. And then Novadia Group sets up your account, and then the equipment ships. So that's just an overview. Next slide, please. So until recently, I would say that cash has been king at farmers markets, but especially because of COVID, we have seen a big shift towards electronic payments. Here are obviously with SNAP EBT, it's only electronic, but we also have more and more people using credit and debit for a touchless payment solution. And we don't think this is going to go away after COVID. We think that we're going to be sticking in the realm of electronic payments becoming more and more the norm at farmers markets and farm stands. With Market Link, we are seeing really a huge increase over the past year in SNAP, credit, debit, SNAP, EBT and credit debit transactions. So, you know, for farmers and farmers markets, I think maximizing your ability to make a profit means accepting all the currencies that people are using to purchase food, and that would include SNAP EBT. And we have been able to negotiate really good rates. Next slide, please. The benefits of accepting SNAP EBT are numerous. I know that there is some hesitancy about adding a new currency into your wheelhouse, but you know, what we are seeing is that when you accept all the currencies that people use to purchase groceries, you expand your customer base, you improve food access in your community, you create marketing opportunities and increase sales, and that these things reinforce each other. It does take a few years often for it to make sense. You know, just getting the word out and some of the things that Angela touched on in terms of marketing. But, you know, it is a currency that people use to buy groceries. And I think that when farmers and farmers markets accept all the currencies used to buy groceries, you know, everyone wins. Next slide. So right now there's a huge amount of money circulating in the food economy and SNAP EBT. The pandemic did result in increased allotments, and in addition, some new benefits. Pandemic EBT, which you may have heard of, is a benefit that is going to school-age children who are getting free and reduced lunch. What I've heard anecdotally from farmers market managers and also from direct market farmers who are accepting SNAP is that a lot of their new customers are people with pandemic EBT. And we like to see this as a companion program to FMNP so that there is some overlap with people who are getting FMNP and SNAP, but it's not, it's not everyone. There are lots of people on SNAP who are not eligible for FMNP. Next slide, please. Who is eligible for SNAP? Any person who qualifies based on income and household factors. This varies state to state. 39 million Americans received SNAP last year. What are the SNAP eligible foods? I like to say it's anything that you would get at a grocery store to prepare a meal at home. And in addition to plants and seeds that bear fruit, non-eligible products include wine, alcohol, supplements, hot, ready-to-eat foods that are meant to be eaten on site, flours, things like that. Next slide. So MarketLink has two equipment options. Someone mute, please. Thank you. Has two equipment options. There's the free equipment, people who are eligible, farmers or direct farmers markets or direct market farmers who are eligible get a new card reader with a 1-year warranty that can be used to process SNAP debit credit wherever you sell, and there is no annual fee for the app or processing for the first year. For people who are not eligible for the free equipment, there is the possibility of purchasing the card reader and selecting a processing plan. Next slide, please. One of the things that we did in this iteration of the grant was beef up our technical assistance. There are a lot of steps to becoming a SNAP authorized retailer and getting your equipment. And the feedback we got was that this was a barrier to getting more farmers and farmers markets to participate. So we are there to help with the eligibility assessment. We are there to help with the getting your SNAP authorized retailer through the USDA system and getting your computer or getting your equipment set up and any training that you need. We have a really good team of customer service representatives, and they can help you through the whole process. Next slide. New for the grant this year is that if you are a farmer's market or direct market farmer who has not received equipment from us through this current grant cycle, you are probably eligible. So that is to say, let's say you already have equipment from some years past that you got through a different grant cycle or grant offer, you could very well be eligible for our equipment. The USDA has provided a printer waiver for those who receive equipment through this grant. It is required for SNAP EBT transactions that you give the shopper a printed receipt. We have a waiver for that. Another thing that's new is that the Novadia Group is now a SNAP EBT third-party processor, which means that we are able to offer MarketLink customers no per transaction fee for SNAP EBT. Just FYI for people who are familiar with the program, the original app was called Mobile Market Plus. We are phasing that out, and it's now Total Pay Go is the name of the app, and it has enhanced features, which I will talk about later. And we also have negotiated a deal with Square to integrate credit and debit processing, which a lot of farmers and farmers markets have been using, especially since the pandemic. Next slide, please. Just to note, to talk a little bit more about that printer waiver, it is only for people who received equipment through the grant for this this grant cycle. And if you want a printer, we can connect you with one through the Novadia Group, but it's a nice thing. It's just another thing that you don't have to worry about if you go with the MarketLink program this year. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, Novadia Group is now a third-party processor for SNAP. This is great. It's a month-to-month license. There's no long-term contracts, no early termination fees, and no setup fees. So it is a very we've made it as easy as possible. Let's just put it that way, to accept SNAP EBT with this program. Next slide, please. Just to dig in a little bit more about what you get and what you need. This is a bring your own device program, which means that each MarketLink customer needs their own smart device to run the app. The equipment is app-based. So you need a smart device, that could be a phone or a tablet, with data service. It actually uses very little data, but you do need that. You could use a Wi-Fi hotspot if that's available to you. The equipment works with any carrier, and the card reader and the use of the app is free for the first year. After that, it is, here I'm just looking at the rates, $19.95 a month, or a year for $191 for the whole year. Next slide. This is some overview of the transaction rates. As I mentioned, the use of the app is free the first year. SNAP EBT costs nothing to the user. And then if you wanted to integrate credit and debit, those are two options. There are others, but we were able to negotiate pretty good rates with Square, and you would be able, and it integrates with the Total Pay Go app. Next slide, please. So this is what the equipment would look like. So as I mentioned, it's an app, and it is very intuitive and works very similarly to other apps. Not difficult, but again, we do have a customer service team that can help farmers and farmers markets who need a little assistance with that. Next slide. You can learn more about the Total Pay Go app. Here's all the information. And I did share a copy of this presentation as a PDF, so you can have all this information afterwards. Next slide. This is another nice feature of the app, is that you do get detailed data on your sales transactions, which you can export and then upload to QuickBooks or whatever accounting software that you're using, which can be very helpful in understanding sales patterns. Next slide. How to get started. So the first thing you would do is apply for the grant, which sounds tedious, but it isn't. It's a very, very short form that you would fill out on our website. Next slide. Thank you. A couple things for farmers and markets to remember. You do need an active email account that you check regularly to be able to do this. You also need a bank account, because all the transactions are electronic and would go into your bank that way. And when you apply for SNAP authorization with the USDA, you are required to give your Social Security number. And there are some other details about your businesses that you would need to give to the USDA as well. I can share those details. I'll drop in the chat. We have a manual for the program, which goes into great detail on the things that you need from the USDA. Next slide. If you don't qualify for the free equipment, there are other options. You would still qualify for the nationally negotiated rates, but you would just have to pay for the app and purchase the card reader. Just get in touch with us if that's of interest. Next slide. And there's some future developments I wanted to talk about. We are working on what we're calling an electronic wallet, where through the Total Pay Go app, we would be able to accept all tender types: eWIC, FMNP, loyalty, and incentives. We are developing FMNP in conjunction with a couple state agencies, and working on expanding the suite of services that can be used through the Total Pay Go app. Another thing, we do get this question a lot about online SNAP. The USDA is aware that there is a need and a desire for online SNAP with farmers markets and direct market farmers, and we're hoping to be part of the solution, but nothing has happened yet. Next slide. eWIC is available now in some states. So there are a few states that are able to process eWIC through the Total Pay Go app. Those are California, Maryland, New York, Oregon, and Massachusetts. That's not saying that they are actively doing it, but they are able to do it now. There is a loyalty feature in the Total Pay Go app that can be utilized now. It is only for SNAP, and it does require that the program coordinator and each vendor have their own equipment. So by equipment, that just means they have the app on a smart device. We should have more information about that soon. Next slide. Just returning to the NAFMP mission, the goal of the organization is to create opportunities for consumers to buy fresh produce and support local foodways. And we see the market link as a really important part to make that possible, just to create streamlined payment solutions that are really geared towards farmers and farmers markets. Next slide. Please connect with us on social media. You can send us direct messages to any of those accounts. We're pretty active and like to share information from stakeholders. Next slide. And here is everything you need to know to learn more about the program and connect with us. Again, the presentation is going to be shared afterwards, so don't worry about writing this stuff down or getting screen grabs. Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you, Juliet. And next up, we have Legita Wilson with the Indiana Department of Health. Thank you to everyone for staying muted, and remember to include your questions in the chat, and we will definitely have time after for a Q&A with the presenters. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Legita Wilson. I'm attached to the WIC division of the Indiana Department of Health, and I manage USDA-funded commodity programs, of which 2 are WIC and Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Programs. Next slide. This is a slide that is required from our media people. That is included on every presentation that we have, simply restating the mission and vision of the Indiana Department of Health. Next. What we will cover in this brief presentation is each of the programs, issuance and redemption, the dates for this season, how allocation works, what's required to become a participating farmer or market, and contact information for additional information. WIC FMNP, WIC Farmers Market Nutrition Program. This is a seasonal benefit to WIC participants. The purpose, and it is governed by the Child Nutrition Act, is to provide fresh, nutritious, unprepared fruits and vegetables from farmers markets to women, infants, and children who are nutritionally at risk. Secondarily, it is intended to expand awareness, use of, and sales at farmers markets. Who is eligible to receive a WIC benefit? Pregnant, breastfeeding, and postpartum women, children who are 1 to 5 years of age, and infants who are more than 4 months old. Currently, the benefit issued individually is 1 booklet of 3 $8 checks. The caveat is that, for example, if there is a household of 4, 2 adults, 2 children, and 3 of those household members are eligible, Only one of them will receive a benefit at a time. If that household spends the initial benefit and they have another eligible household member and there are remaining checks to be issued, then a second eligible household member may receive a benefit. And that can continue as long as we have food instruments remaining to be issued and there are other eligible household members. Next slide. Senior FMNP, Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program. It functions in a very similar manner to WIC FMNP, although it is governed by a completely different set of regulations. Senior FMNP falls under the Farm Bill, so it is renewed every 4 years. The purpose of Senior FMNP and the redactions are intentional in this particular slide. Because we choose to operate WIC and Senior FMNP under a single consolidated state plan, we also chose to apply a standard set of rules to both. The unredacted text in this slide is the text directly from the regulation. Purpose: to provide fresh, nutritious, unprepared, locally grown fruits, vegetables, honey, and herbs from farmers markets, roadside stands, and CSAs to low-income seniors. Because we operate under a consolidated state plan, honey is not included as an eligible item in SFMNP, nor is purchasing through a CSA. The second purpose of Senior FMNP is to increase the domestic consumption of agricultural commodities by expanding or aiding in the expansion of domestic farmers markets, roadside stands, and CSAs. Again, CSAs are not included in Indiana's state plan. And thirdly, to expand awareness, use of, and sales at farmers markets. As you can see, the purposes of WIC and Senior FMNP greatly align. Who is eligible to receive Senior FMNP benefits? Someone who is 60 or older with household income at or below 185% of current federal poverty income guidelines would be eligible. And again, that's on an individual basis. There is a secondary eligibility set that's very hard to meet, but we do have a couple of areas in the state that actually have a few participants who meet this criteria. If you are not age 60, then you must be a person with disabilities who also lives in housing primarily occupied by the elderly and where congregate nutrition services are provided. As you can see, it is a rather high bar for anyone under 60 to receive the benefits. Benefits per individual are one booklet of 4 $5 checks. In Senior FMNP, if there are 2 or more elderly persons in a household and combined gross household income falls within income guidelines, each of those eligible seniors can receive a booklet at the same time. Next slide, please. Issuance and redemption. WIC benefits are issued by WIC local agencies. We leave it up to the local agency to determine when, where, and how they issue benefits within our stated date range. Some WIC local agencies choose to issue benefits at clinic. Others choose to issue at markets and stands. Still others have implemented stands or markets at their clinic location in order to bring the produce to the participants. Senior benefits are issued by area agencies on aging, other nonprofits, or Indiana Department of Health. My team supports 3 counties in the state so that we have coverage for every county in the state. Senior benefits are issued at congregate meal sites, at senior centers, by mail, and of course, They may also issue at markets and stands or bring the produce to a senior housing facility and set up a stand. As long as it is not prohibited by regulation, if it makes sense, we'll try it. I am of the throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks mentality. And USDA loves to hear about pilot projects, successes, and things that we would do differently. Both WIC and senior FMNP benefits can be used to purchase locally grown produce from WIC-approved farmers at WIC-approved selling locations. That means that both the farmer and the place at which they sell their produce must be authorized. When a farmer or a selling location becomes WIC-approved, they are automatically also approved for the senior FMNP. Next slide, please. Program dates. This year, issuance begins June 1st, or may begin June 1st. The exact date changes annually because we tend to want to start issuance on a Monday and end it on a Saturday. This does not mean that the local agencies must issue checks on June 1st. They are allowed to determine, again, when, where, and how they issue benefits. Those in the northern part of the state may choose to start their season a little bit later, and that is perfectly okay. In all instances, issuance must end September 30th, and that is a regulatory requirement. This season, redemption ends October 16th, meaning that is the last date that a participant can use their benefits to purchase produce. That date changes every year because we try to stop on a Saturday. The local agencies must submit their check registers to our banking partner by the end of the first week in October. They also submit those registers weekly or bi-weekly throughout the season. Farmers must deposit checks into their bank accounts no later than November 7th each year. We encourage, but do not require, that they also deposit their checks weekly or bi-weekly. And that's because since this is a very paper-oriented process, the only way I have to know how much money I have left to spend is by going into the bank account and seeing how much has been redeemed. And that is something that I do daily during the season. The deadline for new market applications is April 30th. That is in response to a request from the local agencies to provide them with the list of approved locations in advance of the beginning of issuance. We will, however, accept new farmer applications through September 30th. This is because we do understand that many farmers who are opposed to participating in this particular government-funded program, once they see other farmers receiving payment at the market, they become a little more interested. So we will accept those applications through September 30th. May 15th, we send the current list of markets and stands that are authorized to all of the local agencies so that they can provide that information to the recipients of the benefit. There are 3 options for a required training session by the state in May. Newly participating farmers and market masters must participate in face-to-face training prior to engaging in FMNP activities. We have a morning class, an afternoon class, or an evening class in an attempt to accommodate everyone's varying schedules. If you are a newly applying market master or vendor, in your approval packet, you will receive a flyer listing the agenda for that class, the class options, and how to register for one of those. Next slide, please. This is something I thought you might possibly be interested in, is how do we allocate the funding for these programs? Allocation of checks to agencies is based on their prior year distribution. For example, if they did not issue, not counting the year of COVID, all of the checks that we gave them in the prior year, we're not going to give them that same quantity of checks this season. Prior year redemption. If we have a high performing agency that distributed all of the checks they had and their redemption is higher than the state average, we will allocate or offer them additional checks over their baseline from the prior year. This is also dependent on available funding. The year of COVID sucked a lot of money out of the state treasury. So at the beginning of this season, we were asked to implement an across the board decrease of 15 to 25% in all of our programs. However, after the initial allocations were done, we were notified by FNS that we received the requested $50,000 increase in funding for senior farmers market. So there will be a second allotment of checks to any senior local agency that wants them. It's also dependent on the number of participating agencies. There are only a couple of WIC entities that don't currently participate, and that is because they don't have any farmers or markets within their service area. But if we were to have new participating agencies, we would have to allocate them some of the checks that we have available, and that might decrease the amount of checks that other agencies previously received. We have to cut the pie into more slices in that particular scenario. And it's based on agency requests. If an agency doesn't think that they can distribute the entire allocation that we give them, then we're not going to make them take all of that allotment. If we have additional checks that are returned to the state, we will offer those to other agencies, and any agency that wants them can take them, and we transfer those within the banking system. Next slide, please. The part that you have probably been anxiously awaiting. How does a farmer or a market become WIC approved? For a farmer, the requirements are that you live in Indiana or a bordering county of a neighboring state, that you grow at least 51%, more than half, of the items you sell over the course of a season. The remaining 49% of produce can be purchased from other local growers. That you have a farm stand and or sell at WIC approved markets. That's because being authorized doesn't help you if you don't have an authorized location at which to sell. If you are a newly applying farmer and you want to sell at a market that is not currently WIC approved, we will hold your application and it will be rejected unless you choose to sell at a WIC approved market, or the only market at which you sell chooses to participate in the program and meets the requirements to be an authorized market. As mentioned earlier, everyone newly participating has to attend a training session prior to accepting checks in the first season of participation. To become a WIC approved market, you must have at least 3 WIC approved produce vendors. Now, that can either be vendors who are already WIC approved or vendors who become WIC approved before we will approve the market application. You must have a market master or representative who oversees the market. You must have defined days and hours of operation at a permanent location. Your market must not be within 5 miles of a currently approved market that is operating on the same day and at the same time. And the market must be in existence a minimum of 2 years. Unless, and that's the tiny print at the very bottom, as Juliet mentioned, I thought her idea was great, and I provided these slides to Christina as a PDF as well. But there is the ability to grant an override request if a WIC and or senior local agency and or Purdue Extension staff puts in writing a request that we override the 2-year minimum existence rule and makes the case for the service need in the area and the benefit to participants if we grant that override, then that is the only way to get around that 2-year minimum existence rule. Next slide. The manual. The FMNP manual can be found on our farmers markets and stands information page on wic.in.gov. It is downloadable from our document control system so that what you access from this link will always be the current and only approved version of the manual. Last slide, please. Contact information. Commodities Programs has a group mailbox, WIC Commodities Programs at ISDH.in.gov that anyone on our team has access to. My direct contact information is there, as well as Joe Ryan, my program coordinator. There are also links to the WIC coverage map, the senior coverage map, and the IDUH program page. WIC and senior coverage maps will show you participating counties and who to contact for each of those programs. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, Legita.
Oh, and
Juliet.
there was one thing that I thank you for the reminder. Something else that we wanted to mention. Let me pull that up. Specifically for farmers, in case you are not aware, AMS has started a program that offers fresh produce boxes through the Emergency Food Assistance Program. Any current farmer who has a BOA with AMS is eligible to apply. And I thought that would be a really good opportunity for produce growers in Indiana. Christina will be posting that information
On Facebook.
you later.
We'll use Facebook, and it may also be included in the email for everyone. Before we move on to questions, this presentation is being recorded, and we do have a YouTube channel for the Indiana Farmers Market Community of Practice. I want to again thank our presenters, Legita, Juliet, and Angela, and I want to thank you all for attending. Let's go ahead. I will stop sharing and we will move on to the Q&A. Let me see what questions. Again, the PowerPoint presentations will be shared. We do have a question about market manager who has changed, and do they need a new bank account for that market manager? And then do they have to apply to a new FNS?
I can answer that. They do not. They don't need to apply for a new FNS number. That they should be fine.
Okay.
They will want to contact USDA FNS. There's a farmers market helpline number because they do need to know if there is a change in market manager. And that number is 312-353-6609. And that's included in my PowerPoint presentation. So they can go back and get that.
Yeah, and I will share it.
Yep, thank you.
There is a question about Square. I believe that goes to Juliet. Would the app Square Combo take debit credit be good for markets that also sell merchandise like shirts and market bags? So can it do double duty?
Sure. So if it's a market level system, I think this is what the question is asking, where where you're doing tokens, where you're selling tokens to people for debit credit, and then doing Snap Shopper or swiping their card and getting tokens to spend at market. You would also be able to use the app Square combo to sell merchandise at the market information tent.
Okay, thank you. Another one about Total Pay Go app. Does every vendor need a smart device? Does the market process all payments or would it be like the market processing
Right.
all payments for vendors?
So I'm going to put I'll drop a link into the chat when I'm done, but there are two. It depends on if you're doing a market level system for accepting SNAP EBT or if it's vendor level. So if it's a market level system where somebody is coming and swiping the card and selling and basically exchanging the swipe for tokens, and then those tokens are spent with individual farmers. And then at the end of market, the manager goes and collects the tokens and gives a receipt and does a reimbursement system. Then you only need one set of equipment if it's at the market level. It is possible, and there are many markets that do this where individual farmers are accepting SNAP EBT directly. It's a little, sometimes there are farmers who have a farm stand or a CSA, and they are also selling at a market and they're able to accept SNAP EBT directly. That's what makes sense for them. But many markets, and I think Angela should probably speak to this, like I don't know what the norm is in Indiana. Many markets, most markets do a market level system where you have where you're accepting SNAP EBT, the market is accepting SNAP EBT on behalf of the vendors and has a script system in place of tokens or vouchers that are distributed.
Okay,
Could I let me add on to that, Juliet?
Mm-hmm.
If we end up with an eFMNP option, each vendor will be required to have their own equipment.
Absolutely. So the eFMNP is kind of the monkey wrench in all of this, and my sense is the train has left the station on that states are, one by one going to be transitioning from a paper system to an electronic system. When that happens, it is going to continue to be a transaction directly between the shopper and the farmer. And when that happens, the farmer will need some kind of device to be able to accept those benefits.
okay, thank you. Here's a question about you. This market manager is starting another market at a different location with a different name. Can they use the equipment from the first location at their new location? Also, they currently have Total Pay app. So the two markets are also on separate days and separate locations. So can one set of equipment be used at multiple markets?
I know that some markets do that where they use one, like Grow NYC is allowed to operate all of their markets under one FNS number, but the USDA does want you to have a separate FNS number for each market. And because of that, you do need a different license for the app for each market. So the equipment is an app and you get a license for it, and each market has a unique, set of equipment, which in this case is an app. I'm imagining it's the same for Angela.
Okay, so it's basically using the correct access to that the market was provided. So
yeah, it's each market needs a unique FNS number and a unique piece of equipment associated with that FNS number.
okay, thank you.
There are some exceptions to that, like a huge exception with Grow NYC, which operates like 45 markets under one FNS number, but we don't need to talk about that.
Okay, here's a good question about EBT. Is the EBT card, the SNAP EBT card, different than a normal debit credit card? So like if it's used, are there fees assessed for the vendor?
It is a different card. It's a blue card that says Hoosier Works. It's dedicated only to SNAP and TANF benefits. For farmers markets, if you're using the equipment, the free equipment, there are no SNAP EBT fees. I'm not sure about regular retailers because I don't deal with those.
Yeah, and it's the
But I
same
know
with
for-
the, yeah, it's the same with the market link total pay go equipment. There are no per transaction fees for the market or the farmer to accept SNAP EBT. Those are absorbed by market link.
Our next question was that they are running 2 markets at the same time, different locations. Is it possible to get a second device? So
Yeah, I think that depends on if they have 2 different FNS numbers. It's kind of that same thing again. The devices are assigned to each FNS authorization number.
okay.
Hmm.
Here was a question about, they received a random call about updating their machine. This person really didn't have much information to share with them. So they're really concerned if that's a scam or what is actually going on.
Right. Conduent is, we've renewed our contract with Conduent for EBT services. So part of the contract renewal is upgrading the free wireless and wired point of sale devices. So they have been since the end of February reaching out to those farmers markets and direct market farmers that have the free equipment to let them know, hey, we're upgrading you. We're going to send you instructions on how to return the equipment, and then we're going to be sending you new equipment. And I've gotten a lot of emails and calls from people who are concerned because they're not sure if it's a scam or what's going on. So if you have any questions about that, please contact me. It is Conduent. They should be sending you an email with the Conduent, I think it's conduent.com, whatever their official email is. That should be in the email address. But if you do have any questions, please reach out to me and I can help you with those.
Thank you. Next question is for Legita. If the market is approved for WIC and senior vouchers, does each farmer applicable vendor at the market also have to be approved?
Yes, absolutely. Markets do not accept nor process nor deposit benefits. The market is simply an authorized selling location. So any farmer who wants to accept FMNP benefits must become a WIC approved vendor. And as an aside, one of the most frequent findings in monitorings is that they must post their authorized vendor sign at any time that they are at market. And that is not a rule that we can change. That is a regulatory requirement. And if they don't, it's a finding. If we catch them doing it twice, it's a level 2 violation. If we catch them doing it a 3rd time, it's a level 3 violation that can result in suspension or disbarment from the program. And it's just such a simple thing to put that sign somewhere. Also, our participants in many times will not go up and ask a farmer if they participate. If they don't see the sign, they assume that we have no authorized vendors, and then they call and yell at me.
So then the vendors, farmers and vendors need to have signage in order for the patrons to identify that they will accept WIC and senior vouchers. Just a really quick question on what constitutes a permanent marker. We block off a street on Thursday, same spot every week. Is this considered permanent? Anyone?
If you're talking about the FMNPs, yes, meaning that you will be in the same location on defined days at defined hours. Yes, we would consider that a permanent location.
Another question for WIC and senior. How long does the approval process take for a market to meet the criteria to become a WIC and senior voucher approved?
It depends. Last year, it took weeks and weeks because I was the only person working 4 programs with additional funding and doing contracts. This year, I have some help. And it depends on a number of things. Joe is primarily focused on processing applications right now. If the application is complete and you email it, it might take a week to get it approved. Then when we go into the office the following week, we will construct and mail the approval packet. That includes a copy of the signed agreement, 2 signs, and this is for a farmer, and a vendor stamp if you're a new farmer. If you are a renewing farmer, you retain your vendor stamp every year and you just get a new copy of the agreement and 2 new signs. If the application is incomplete, it could take a very long time because we have to send it back to you. If you submit it by email, we'll return it to you by email. If you mail it and you have no email address nor phone number, then we have to USPS snail mail it back to you. So it depends on a lot of factors. We process them as quickly and as efficiently as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you. There was a question about double up bucks, and we will be actually doing a webinar on double up bucks. Yes, they could be for WICs, they could be for WIC, seniors, and also SNAP. So again, we will be sending out notices on webinars coming up on these topics. So to be announced really within the next 2 weeks. There was a specific question. Being a small farmer in the city of Gary, we noticed that last year the checks and WIC were being directed only to certain spots. And we were kind of left out. And is that because of COVID? I believe this is Legita.
The local agency provides each participant with the list of locations where they can spend their benefits. So if you are not on that list, it may mean that you were not currently approved. If you are a farmer who does not have an authorized farm stand, you won't be on that list. We only list farm stands and markets. So if you have a location at which you want to sell, you need to get that location approved as a roadside stand. Also, Christina, with regard to the senior double up program, those are local programs. So there are senior double ups in various counties and at various markets. It is dependent on the market. Hendricks County does WIC and senior double up at 3 markets in Hendricks County. Heel and Allen County has a double up program for WIC and senior. Linton Farmers Market has its own double up program. So it's very individual to a market.
And we'll be providing webinars on how markets can go about setting up a double up bucks program. So, so we are at 1:03, and I show 19 new messages. This has been a very popular webinar with lots of questions. Should we keep going for another 5 minutes, or do we need to call time? It's up to the speakers.
I'm here for the duration.
Yeah, I'm available.
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
good.
thank you. I appreciate it.
So we're
I'm available.
Okay, so the next question is very good, is how does SNAP work for CSAs?
I can answer that. It is there. There is a workaround. As I mentioned, online SNAP is basically only available to some very large retailers right now. And the way the farmers that we work with are doing accepting payments for SNAP EBT is they're doing a week-to-week payment, and they have people pay upon pickup. So the order was placed usually online, and then when the payment comes up, it says, they can either, some farmers want them to hold it with another payment form, which might eliminate certain people from being able to participate, but most farmers just have it, hold for EBT. And then when the person comes to pick up, they have to have their, the shopper, the EBT holder needs to show up and then enter their PIN and pick it up. Pick up when they pick up their food. So that's how they're doing it. So it's a little bit of an honor system.
Excellent. Another question about mobile farmers markets, where they market out of a plant or food truck. Can we get one FMNP number to cover each location, or does the number cover the mobile market, I guess?
I believe that it just covers the mobile market, like the business. I can double check and give you the answer to that, but I know that we have authorized a number of mobile markets and gotten them hooked up with the equipment. So it's, I don't think they need, I would need to double check, but my understanding is that they do not need unique FNS numbers for each location. It's for the business.
I think that's
Thank
correct,
you.
Julia.
And then Legita, for the same mobile market, would they be able to accept the FMNP vouchers?
It depends. If it is a business that purchases produce from farmers, no. If it is a farmer or a farm that operates mobile markets, then yes, we can talk about that. There are some special requirements I have for mobile markets because we have to be able to monitor them. So those mobile markets would have to have specific days and times that they are at specific locations in order for us to approve it. But it is a possibility.
Okay, the next question is about Farmers Cooperative Food Hub that sells online. And from their perspective, only large box stores are allowed to apply for USDA authorization to sell online. Do you have any information regarding online stores? I believe, was that mentioned in the presentation?
Yeah, I would say yes. At the moment, it's not anyone can. The way it works is that anyone can accept online SNAP, but you just have to have the capacity to build out the back end to do it, which is prohibitively expensive for anybody except for a Walmart or and Amazon or Whole Foods or Alda, I think, are the ones that are able to do it. That is going to be changing. The process is slow. I know that the USDA is putting out a request for proposals to develop the capacity for smaller retailers to do online SNAP. There is a really good article about this in the Farmers Market Coalition blog archive. And while we're talking, I'm going to look it up and drop the link in. So, as I mentioned, there is a workaround, which is basically you do the order as a cash on delivery, like cash upon pickup, or hold it that way. And then when the person comes, the shopper comes, they swipe their card and enter their PIN. I know that WhatsApp, or is it, no, it's called What's Good app, has a workaround as well. They are online platform for selling local food. And they do have a workaround for some of their clients, but it's not any different than what I'm talking about. Basically, there's a box that you can check saying that this will be paid for with SNAP EBT, and then the actual payment has to happen in person at pickup. But let me look up this Farmers Market Coalition article, and I'll drop it in the chat because it has pretty good up-to-date information on where we are with online SNAP for non-big box stores.
Yeah, the issue is you have to enter a PIN.
Yep.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So that's if you're making a SNAP purchase, you do have to enter your card number and your 4-digit PIN. So
And it has to happen in person by the by the shopper, the card holder.
That's what's the tricky issue is.
Okay, I found the link and I'm putting it in the chat. It's a really good article.
Thank you. There was a separate question about can a farmer accept SNAP EBT at a market if he has his own equipment instead of using tokens issued by the market master?
I don't see
believe
why
so.
not. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't see why not.
As long as USDA FNS has authorized them as a retailer, then there's no problem with that.
If there is an incentive program run at that market, you know, they might lose out on participating in that. Not necessarily. There are some markets in Maryland that that do both systems. So if there's a farmer that is able to accept SNAP directly from the shopper does their transaction, gets a receipt from the farmer, and then goes to the market information table to get their incentive match. It's obviously a little complicated, but it's not unheard of, at least in my neck of the woods.
There's a question about WIC signage. Does WIC provide signage for the markets to show that they do take the vouchers, or do markets have to develop them?
We do not provide signage to the markets. In the past, we were gifted by your organization, Christina, some signacades that had signs associated with SNAP and the FMNPs. I have some marketing materials that I would be happy to gift to the markets if you want them. I mean, I have a ton of leftover like cards and marketing materials that I would like to get rid of. So if you are a WIC approved market and you would like some of those, please let me know.
I received some posters from Indiana Department of Health that were SNAP EBT and then WIC specific. And I will be sharing those, but I can't remember if they're just general posters or if they can be used to show that you can accept the vouchers. So I will be sharing those. They were all one big PDF, and I asked the person who created them to create separate PDFs so people can use them individually. So I will be sending those out to everybody. So hopefully they'll be helpful.
And we don't, I do want to remind everyone that markets do not accept FMNP benefits. Only the farmers may accept those benefits,
right.
Which is why we don't provide signage to the market.
So there was a question, I think, Legita, you may have answered this one. Can a market manager cash out the vendor's vouchers and then make all the vouchers in the manager's deposit? Is that?
No, because a market is not an authorized vendor. You don't have an authorized vendor stamp, and I will not pay those checks when they hit our bank.
So it's a vendor only, no market.
Yes, and that's because WIC FMNP requires one-to-one reconciliation of those food instruments. We have to be able to, on demand, say this participant with this check number spent it with this vendor.
Okay. Next question. I have an FMNP application and it does not have an email address for submission. Where should I email it?
If you have an application and it does not have the instruction sheet, you may not have a current application packet. Those can be downloaded from our website. If you go to wic.in.gov and then in the left navigation pane, go down to Farmers Market/stands information. All of the publicly available documents are listed on that webpage. But there should be an instruction sheet, an application, a produce list, and a market sheet.
Oh.
Everything except the instruction has to be returned to us as part of the application.
Okay. Well, let me scroll down through some of these. I guess there's a question